September 2nd, 1945, on the deck of the USS Missouri, the Japanese surrender marking the end of the greatest war in history. Displayed before Japan was the largest armada of warships that had ever been built. The United States Navy was at the height of its power, unmatched by any navy in the world. Fast forward a mere 5 years. The Korean War is just beginning and the US Navy finds itself a simple ghost of what it used to be. It was woefully understrength, undermanned, undertrained, undermaintained, and not prepared to fight a war. This begs a question. In just 5 years, how did we get here? This is US military history. This introductory episode of the series will be broken down into two sections. The first half will highlight this era in U.S. naval history and explain why it is paramount to study. The second half will then move to a list with a brief synopsis of the episodes of this series. Stay tuned as we learn about the catastrophic reduction of the U.S. Navy between World War II and the Korean War. At the end of World War II, the United States owned half of the world's supply of all shipping. Of this, the Navy consisted of over 1,200 combatant vessels. Among these were the 30 immense fleet carriers and 71 light carriers. "23 battleships, 79 heavy and light cruisers, 791 destroyer and destroyer escorts, 234 submarines, over 2,000 auxiliary ships, 4,000 amphibious ships, and 35,000 landing craft, and a whopping 40,000 aircraft. It was manned by over 3.4 million men and women. It had been through the crucible of fire and heroically won victories like the Battle of the Coral Sea, the Battle of Midway, the Battle of Samar, and the Battle of Surigao Strait. It sank 611 Japanese warships and 2,117 merchant ships. It was capable of projecting overwhelming power to any part of the globe while maintaining a constant stream of vital supplies to replenish the monstrous Allied fighting machine. Here was a force that was fast, powerful, durable, the most dominant navy that had ever existed. Skip 5 years later to the beginning of the Korean War. The Navy was just a shadow of what it used to be. Of the 23 battleships, only one was left, and it was on the chopping block of decommissioning. Of the 100 carriers, only 14 were active. Of the 79 cruisers, there were only 10. Of the 791 destroyers in service, only 140 were left. Of the 234 submarines, only 73 remained. Of the 2,000 auxiliaries, only 332 were left. Of the 4,000 amphibious ships, only 104 were left active. And of the 40,000 aircraft, just a little over 5,000 remained. On paper, this was still a powerful force. However, the US Navy was also horribly undermanned. With only around 490,000 remaining in uniform, a majority of ships were having trouble setting sail. Most ships deployed with a reduced complement, and some even struggled to gather enough men to man just one fire room. Sub-destroyer squadrons could only get one of its ships underway per week by looting men from remaining ships in this squadron. Many men were undertrained and inexperienced. Ships were in disarray and in need of major overhaul. Supplies and logistics were being spread extremely thin. But the Navy's missions did not go away during this time, as it was expected to maintain a virtually worldwide military presence. Things got so dire during this period that at one point the Chief of Naval Operations, then Admiral Chester Nimitz, announced to the public, "Your Navy has not the strength in ships nor personnel to carry out a major military operation." At the beginning of hostilities of the Korean War, when President Truman asked the Navy to set up a heavy blockade in the surrounding seas and to transport the Army to Korea, the Navy responded, "With what transports and with what Navy?" Which obviously raises the question, how did this happen? How can the US Navy go from its historically highest point of readiness to its historically lowest point of readiness in a matter of 5 years? Who was involved in the decision-making process? What mistakes did the Navy make during this period, and what lessons can be learned from them? This series will seek to answer these questions and more as it sheds light to an often forgotten time in US naval history. These 5 years can be described as some of the most difficult and most impactful years for the modern US Navy. Before we start the series, we need to understand 5 distinct problems that plagued the Navy during these 5 years. The biggest historical change in global geopolitics throughout all history occurred when peace was declared for World War II. The world was completely different from the world just 5 years earlier. For the Navy, it was an unknown world with an unknown immediate future. In 1945, no other Navy in existence had even remotely the power of the American Navy, and thus nothing to challenge it. Not only that, but technology was advancing at an alarming rate. Weapons at the beginning of World War II were already obsolete, and the advancement of electronics, jet engines, and the atomic bomb were rapidly making those weapons produced at the end of the war obsolete. Not only would the Navy have trouble interacting with this completely new world, the Navy would deeply struggle with the national government at this time. The quintessential problem for the Navy during this era would be a lack of any clear foreign policy from the US government, and thus no clear objectives or missions for its military. Only the vague but gargantuan assignment of patrolling the world's oceans to maintain global peace was given to the Navy. With no real enemy, the Navy organized to meet this mission, but was severely handicapped by a refusal from the government to provide adequate funding to complete this task. Far worse, as each year passed, the government pulled more and more funding from the Navy just as global tensions were rising. To promulgate the situation, inter-service rivalry reached its highest level of conflict between the military branches. There has always been, and there always will be, rivalries between the services, but the combination of unifying the military under one branch and the extreme lack of funds committed to the US military forced a whole new level of bitter fighting as each branch fought with the other to gain a bigger piece of this minuscule military budget. Not only did the Navy struggle with the whole new world, lack of direction, little funding from the government, and fighting with other military branches, the US Navy had a brutal internal fight to define itself in this new world, specifically with its mission and force structure. Many admirals fought with each other over the focus of the Navy. Would it be a fleet built around aviation, a surface fleet, a balanced fleet, or a submarine fleet? This bickering inside the Navy did nothing to help itself during these years of such uncertainty. And despite the many problems of this post-war era for the Navy, we will use this series to highlight the victories and the great men behind them who, in such hard times, were able to make much out of little. Now, this series will contain around 12 episodes as it follows the US Navy from the surrendering of the Japanese in 1945 to the beginning of hostilities in Korea in 1950. This first episode will provide the context for the whole series as it shows what happened in the Navy during this time, along with those outside influences that most impacted it. Specifically, it will highlight its struggle with its disastrously small budget and the decisions it was forced to make all the way up to the Korean War. This episode explains the plans the Navy prepared for the post-war naval force. It displays the struggle the Navy experienced of making plans without any clear guidance from a national direction, and fighting within the service over what that force should look like. The third episode will focus on the immediate drawdown after the surrender of Japan. We will look into the specific plans the Navy made to prepare for the drawdown. Then we will explain the chaos that actually took place, the dramatic demobilization that rapidly occurred. This special episode will spotlight the massive undertaking of bringing the boys back home. Unmatched by anything in history, the Navy successfully transported back home millions of servicemen from around the world in record time, one of the great feats accomplished by the Navy in the 20th century. The fifth episode will highlight a much forgotten parts of naval history, and that was the post-World War II Mothball fleet. We will go into detail about the establishment and location of all the warships. We will investigate its effectiveness, specifically how well it did in its reactivation for the Korean War. This episode will establish the direction of the Navy and how it had to redefine itself and its mission amongst a new world with new enemies, little funding, and the new atomic bomb. This next episode will visually display the fleet, how it was organized, and the locations of those task forces. This will provide the framework of the Navy's assets when the Korean War breaks out. This episode will highlight the research and development of new technology, new ship designs, and new aircraft. We'll then walk through the procurement schedule of those assets. Military unification played an important role during this era, and it defined the future of the Navy. Often described as the reluctant military branch when it came to unity, this episode will display the Navy's role in the unification process and how it influenced the results of the National Security Act of 1947. The 10th episode will explain the Navy's role in Operation Crossroads, also known as the Bikini Bomb Trials. It will explain the operation and analyze the lessons learned from the atomic bomb tests. One of the most important events during this period, the infamous Revolt of the Admirals, is the outcome of small budgets, inter-service rivalries, and the unification of the military. This episode will explain what happened during this time and how it affected the military establishment and the future of the Navy. This series will all come together with this last episode as we analyze how all these events influenced the poor readiness level of the US Navy in the brink of the Korean War. As of now, this series will contain these 12 episodes, but as time goes on, there may be a change and new episodes might be added. Any changes to this series will be displayed in both the description and the first comments in the comment section. Overall, this series will provide the substance for viewers to learn more about this important stage of U.S. naval history. Not only will we see how the Navy developed itself into the blue water Navy that engaged in the Korean War, but more importantly, we will see how it took its first steps to become the modern U.S. Navy we know today. If you like the content and want to see more, consider supporting me on Patreon, where you can also get additional content such as corresponding infographics, videos with additional info, behind-the-scenes videos, desktop wallpapers, and more. If you don't want to miss any episodes, make sure you are subscribed and have pressed the bell button. Please consider liking, commenting, and sharing. Until next time, this is U.S. Military History.